there, and welcome to Paris Paranormal. I'm Terry Keel, and April, unfortunately, is a bit under the weather tonight, so she will not be with us, but that's okay. I've got this, and we've got a great show planned for you tonight. Thank you for joining, and look forward to you enjoying this fun-filled interview that we're going to have with a good friend of mine. She is an author, a speaker, a musician, and an investigator, and has been for years. And her name is Rebecca Renfroe Borneman, and she's from the paradise of God out there in Lakeland, Florida. It's so beautiful. The weather is amazing there every day, like we had today here, which really was enjoyable. I got to say I enjoyed every moment of today. And anyway, she'll be sharing her frightening true stories about things that have happened to her in her lifetime right there in Lakeland. And some of the paranormal that she's lived through and been a part of. And she has a whole gamut from different things, from extraterrestrials to UFOs to ghosts, hauntings, and all kinds of different things. So we'll bring her in and we'll get her to share with us. So welcome, Rebecca, to, yes, Paranormal here, the Paris Paranormal Show. So I don't want to take up too much time because we've got so much fun to talk about, but I know that you're an author, so tell us a little bit about your book.
We are finishing up the final editing, and my husband, Dan.
Oh, there's Dan. Yes, Dan's with us. Hi, Dan.
It's so good to see you and Kevin, and I'm just so glad you're ensconced up there in your beautiful home.
Oh, thank you.
We love the pictures. It's just so good to be back in touch on a consistent basis now, it seems.
Yes.
So I appreciate you having me on the show. And we'll be talking about this as sensitives. I think that's the word that I prefer to use.
Yes.
And since we're both Christians, we look at this in a different way, but we
Yes.
all experience it. So
that's right.
It's real, and sometimes there's nothing to be afraid of, and sometimes you go, what was that?
Yeah, and why did that happen? But your book is Quantum Windows and Dimensions, and like you were saying, it's a Christian woman's journey of faith and ET contact, which I totally relate to 110%. I can't wait to read your book once it's finished. Hopefully it'll come out by the end of the year.
I want to give a loving tribute to Kathleen Martin.
Yes.
Here. And I want to say hello to her. I'll send her this program afterwards and wish her well, and Charlie and all the other people who have been a part of our lives, not just mine, but yours as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, where do we start?
Well, let's see. Well, let's start at the beginning. What happened in your mom's home? Because I know your mother's home there in Lakeland just had all kinds of different things. I mean, even I experienced things when I came in with our group Enigmatic Anomalies to do some checking out of the home. So take it away. You tell me.
We're jumping later on in life, but that's a good place to start, taking care of my mother. I had left my profession in New York City, which was musical theater and Broadway and off-Broadway, and I still write Christian music today. So that's my life, and I'm happily married, and I love doing all these basic things, which I did for my mom, laundry and cleaning and taking care of her and working. So during that time period, as we knew one another, and you and Kevin as well, attending meetings, I called you to come over to see if you had the same experience as 7 other people in the house were having.
I know.
They all saw the same woman in the same dress, the same hat, the same gloves. They did not know each other, and she walked to the house, and she was on a particular ley line or an energy line or a paranormal line. I don't know what people use. I don't have a name for it, but she walked the line. And I believe even my husband, he saw a shadow at one point. The first time it appeared was seen by one of the caregivers early on in my mom's, at the last couple of years of her life when we actually
Well,
hired people.
was that the first time Dan had ever seen anything like that? You're allowed to talk, Dan. Come on in there. And welcome.
Yeah. Hi, Terry. And Kevin. How you doing, guys?
Good.
I have seen things, but I never really put a great deal of credence to it because it wasn't something that I had experienced often enough to worry about it. But when I started seeing Rebecca and seeing all of the unusual things that in her life, began to take kind of stock of what I had experienced over the years.
Right.
And saying to myself, oh, maybe that's what that was. So
exactly. Yeah, and she had seen.
It's an awareness thing, I believe. If you're not thinking about it, you're not really aware.
Right, and she had seen so much, it must have been overwhelming for you. But go ahead now, Rebecca, fill in the blanks.
Well, this first time, I'll start with that because the caregiver left. She didn't want to see the shadows in the house anymore.
I remember that.
And then other people would come by and they would see the woman and then they would describe it. So it was one after the other. So at some point, there was a friend who brought over a pastor. And this pastor saw the woman also. Mm-hmm. So we went ahead and we thought, well, we'll exercise the house and so forth. And then we asked you to come. Well, she never did anything. She never hurt anyone. So we asked you to come over, and why don't you tell what happened to you?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. What happened was I walked in the front door and immediately did feel a presence, and I'm very sensitive. And I remember having heard you mention people were seeing this woman. I never did see her, but as I walked in near your mother's bedroom, there was a wall there, and I was standing with my back up against the wall, and someone grabbed and squeezed my left shoulder so hard, and I knew there was nobody behind me. So I whipped around, and in the name of Jesus, I commanded it, you may not touch me. In Jesus' name, I rebuked it and bound it, and then cast it out of the house. And I don't know after that point if you ever even had anybody get touched, but I do know it had touched your mom, or I don't know who else it had touched. I've forgotten now.
The best part was she knew you were there, and we were all going to pray to exorcise her.
Right.
And she did not want to go.
Nope.
So
hanging on to me was a mistake.
Mother's dream became disturbing at some point. So Dan and I went in and turned on to a Christian station and left it on in her room the whole time. Yes. So everything was okay. It was just sad to leave that house that we grew up in. It was full of prayer and full of beauty. And what was actually lovely was my mother was a big part of the prayer group of our Episcopal church. And she was holding a meeting one day, and someone brought a woman from out of town and just brought her quickly to the meeting. And at the end, she walked around, she says, there was a little boy in here, and he was standing behind Mrs. Renfroe, my mother. And so Mother looked over and said, oh, I lost my son when he was 11. So I guess he came to be a part of the prayer time. So that was a beautiful thing that happened in the house. We had lots of prayer as well as other things. So so that was experienced by you, so I thought that was great. I also wanted to talk about, during this time I was taking care of my mother, I had 5 years. I mean, we're jumping ahead to now where I'm going to my 40s and 50s. Now, we're not talking about when I was growing up and all the stuff that happened between there.
Right.
Start somewhere. So I was working on a ranch for 5 years, Terry. And
right.
This is where I know, in reading the book and seeing the picture, I know that Kevin will be interested, because there was a humanoid, a creature, humanoid thing that did come onto the ranch. This ranch was, let me have listed here. There were UFOs, portals, objects appeared and disappeared, and the humanoid creature. And I know Kevin would be interested in this one because of Bigfoot and his research. The dog had been barking all day, and I finally went out about 5 o'clock, and he was at the door of a outside carport area, and inside they were housed all of the metals and things around the house and lawn material and bikes. And all of a sudden, the door flew open, and out flies this thing.
Was it like a Bigfoot, or was it like a skinwalker? Can you describe what the
It was
thing
humanoid.
was?
Yes, I'll describe it. I'm going to take you where it through the bushes. The dog ran after it, ran out of the bush, and so all I could see for a while was this haze running.
Yeah.
And the dog stopped about 30 feet, and all of a sudden, this humanoid is up in the air, and it stopped. It turns its face towards me. It's a couple of feet off the ground. It's about 6 feet plus. There wasn't anything distinguishable with they were more like the hands were like this. The feet were together like that. You could see that it had the structure of a human being.
How big was it, about size-wise?
Thin, somewhere, 6 feet plus.
6 feet plus, wow.
6 plus, oh yeah.
Okay.
And just long and thin, and on the skin, and then off of the skin came all these hairs. And the only reason I could describe it is because it stopped, and it was suspended in the air, and then it zoomed into another dimension through a portal. As I said, this place had different portals and places and things that happened. And the wonderful thing also at the end, yes, there were 3 of us caregivers at that time. I had known this family since I was 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And the ranch was about 10 acres. There was cattle on it as well. They did have horses and dogs at different times. And wonderful gentlemen. And the people who live there now in the family, I'm going to leave the name out as I do in the book.
Good.
Out of respect for people who don't wish to be mentioned.
Yeah.
So going on with the story, the 3 of us as caregivers were helping to clean up the house and take care of things after we passed, and we're all there at the same time. Mm-hmm. I'm outside. 2 of the other caregivers, one's upstairs and one's downstairs, and all of a sudden we hear our names being called. Mm. So we all conversed back to the front door, and we said, "Oh, I wonder who it was." And we talked for a while, and we figured it was probably the owners who were thanking us for being there and helping to take care of him. And she was a marvelous artist, the lady who was there, and he had a wonderful career himself and was a very kindly gentleman. And It was a marvelous 5 years there, and I do write about it. It's similar to, but not as extensive as what took place on the Utah Bigelow Ranch that was owned at that time by him, that had the NIDS, the National Institute of Discovery Science.
Right.
And they were to come where I was, but they closed down in Utah at that point. Mm-hmm. So, here's an interesting one. Okay.
Well, on that one, let me ask you a couple questions. On that one, did it ever communicate with you at all? Try to talk to you?
The animal humanoid?
Yes, the creature that you saw that rose up. No. And
I could not even tell if it had a mouth, but I can tell you that the horses that were next door, after that creature left, mm-hmm. they took them off that property, and they never came back.
They took the horses off the property?
Next door to this ranch. Oh. And they never came back.
Yes, I remember. And this was in Florida, correct? And it was near Lakeland or Orlando?
I'm not going to tell where it is.
Oh, well, no one would know. But that's a pretty big space. But it would seem that, did it ever, like through mental telepathy, did you ever feel like it was trying to communicate anything since it acknowledged you and looked right at you?
It was frightened, and the fact that it stopped to let me see it, and the fact that the dog was 30 feet away and stopped chasing it, because I called. I'm thinking back now, I did call the dog because I didn't want the dog to hurt it, whatever it was that was flying through the air so fast. Mm. And so it was acknowledging me and letting me know that it was okay. And I wasn't afraid at that point. That's a very good question, Terry. No one's ever asked me that before, because I really don't talk about these incidents at great length.
Well, and also I wondered, had you ever then seen it maybe in a dream state while you were dreaming, or did it ever come back? Did you see it again? Never.
No, but there was a woman, but it just reminded me of something. I did call a cryptologist, and he refused to come to the property. Oh. And so I phoned at a recommendation, I phoned someone who was also a sensitive over out in another city. She came over and she identified every single area on that ranch where there was activity.
Isn't that odd that people can relate to those ley lines and those areas that create these bizarre happenings? And, you know, as Christians, I've always wondered, why does the Lord allow us to go through those things? You know, I'm always like, why don't you let somebody else have that? You know, why do I have to have it? And I'm feeling like, you know, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you think differently, but I'm feeling like we're being prepared for other things that are going to happen, or, you know, so that we aren't fearful like others would be fearful and run.
Exactly.
And you and I are being taught to understand and not judge, but work through it and then have some understanding of it, knowing fully that God's in charge. He's in control of all these things.
That's really very well put. Very well spoken, Terry. I agree with you.
You do? Good.
And I think it to help us realize this, that we live in a multi-dimensional, multiverse world.
We do.
And to see through these veils is to help us to live and understand. And we were born with these abilities, or we developed them. And I came from a family that recognized this at an early age within me. And my parents were devout believers and Christians, and we prayed and went to church and had a good old time. And but when something came up and I said something, everybody listened, and I listened to them.
Yep.
And you just did what it always was about, saving a life in terms of that. But I want to get back to the paranormal on this particular creature. There was a woman who at this time, when the creature was on the property, she wrote into the paper because she had a sighting in the swamp with her 2 children.
A sighting of the same thing or something different?
No, but a sighting of a Bigfoot. And I know Kevin would enjoy hearing this. And I will have to share that story with him because I've kept the clipping. She was written up in the paper, and she went on different programs, but she was so hounded, and then she was so put down that by the time I reached her, and I called the paper to find out where she was, she would not speak with me.
Oh, dear.
She was too afraid. She had been hurt.
Right.
And
judged. And
judged. So therefore, she just stopped. And I said, okay, that's all right. And I let it go.
Yeah, that's a very hard thing. Well, now I know some things have happened at your home where you are. Can you share some of those?
Yeah, beautiful story of it. Dan's going to be a part of this. He'll tell the second part.
Okay.
When we moved into a home that had to be changed a great deal because it wasn't taken care of very well. And even the man who came to inspect it said, this house needs a lot of loving. So Dan gave me free reign to do the interior designing and change everything.
Made a honey-do list.
And so we have a guest room in the back, which is its own bathroom. And you both are familiar with our home.
Right,
so
right.
You can picture everything. So we put all the antiques from both of our lives into those rooms. And we had friends visit different times, and we had 2 other friends who were sensitive. And one of them said one day, I'm not comfortable in here, Rebecca. There's something going on, and it's jumping over here to here and here to here, and it's like a loop. So I kept praying and praying, and then the room would be released, and then the thing would come back, and the room would be released. So I'm going, something's in here that I need to locate. So after a couple of years, Terry, I prayed one day, and I said, Lord, this is not good. I need to figure out what it is. If it's not the old radio that came through my husband's aunt, thank you, honey, it's got to be something else. So what you do
it was like an attachment for those that are listening that might not understand that correlation. It was like an attachment coming through, is what you're saying. To that.
So I prayed. I always, Dan and I practice that. If we can't find something or we're having a hard time, honey, let's take your hands, close your eyes, and take a breath. 10 of them. Let the Holy Spirit or your own sensitivity tell you where the object is. So that's what I did. I went straight to the bottom drawer, and what had been placed in there, which we had never noticed, I don't know how it came about, but there was this old rugged-looking mirror. So I took it out. It was the only thing in there in the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it, and it was almost waving in its shadowy darkness around it. And so I went, okay, this is too spooky. I'm getting rid of this thing. And I went to Dan. Your turn.
Okay, let's hear it, Dan.
that was actually my late wife's hand mirror that she had.
Can we get Dan to kind of move over a little so I can see him a little more? There you go. Yeah, come on into the picture. There you go.
It was my late wife's hand mirror that she had when she was a child.
Oh.
And of course, at that point, it was pretty gnarly looking, with corrosion and all manner of makeup and so forth all over it. And I had forgotten about it, and it was in the bottom drawer, and that's actually your mother's dresser. And I just stuck it in there. I thought my daughter might want it, but she didn't. And so at that point, we took it out in the garbage can and threw it away.
And we had no problems after that.
Yeah.
Everything's been cleared within the room, and there's no sense of anything, no problem, and no one feels uncomfortable. And that's where the guests are.
Right.
So, but it took a while to find it, Terry. And I think that a part of it is that objects, as we know, can be blessed or cursed. And it's not anything wrong with his former wife, but she went through a lot of trauma, a lot of illnesses, and suffering. And who knows how and when she received that mirror that was beautiful at one time. But I'm just really glad that we found it. So that has a succession in its story that I think is positive and good.
Well, and what's interesting about that is there can be familiar issues with things, and especially when sicknesses are involved or death. A lot of times there are different things that can attach to something. And this is why you pray over everything, and thank you for sharing that, because I know a lot of people say, oh, I bought something from an antique store and I don't know the history of it, but ever since I did, it's been a little bit weird. Weird things have happened. And I always tell them it has to either be anointed with oil and prayed over, or throw it out, and usually, like Hollywood makes it seem like if you throw it out, oh, it'll come back. No, it will not. Once you heave something out, it's out. And you're not in relationship with that thing any longer. And we know from watching all the movies on TV, which is always giving us, a very poor true spiritual picture of things. They say that these attachments will never leave, but everything will leave in the name of Jesus. There's, it doesn't matter. So his name is the power, and you can detach from all of that.
That's excellent. And as a matter of fact, I had some Spanish friends, and they called me up knowing that. Go ahead, Terry. That's okay. And
excuse me.
All right. So when they called me, they were having one of the children in the family was seeing a picture of an elderly woman who was trying to get out of a mirror. And when they went in, the family wound up seeing it in the mirror themselves. And the woman was trying to get out and take possession of the daughter. So I told them, throw it out and break it into a million pieces. And that's what they did. And then everything calmed down. So you're absolutely right. That's the only other time I've had anything that severe. And then I said, then I want you to anoint the area and anoint your child.
Yes.
And but there are certain times you have to do things an extreme. I'm
Yes.
glad we didn't destroy my mother's dresser or anything.
Yeah, sometimes you do, and we never know what's going on, but we do know that Satan is real and the enemy is real, and he's always attacking us, and there's different ways that he attacks us, and people like you and I are attuned to that maybe more than others are, and we know what to do, how to do it, to set people free, and that's something I take very seriously. I anoint oil, I do an anointing like I know you do, and, pray over everything and give it to the Lord and ask him to remove it, because we have no power. He has the power, and he can remove those things, not us. So, yeah, and this is something that's so important.
Yeah, you may know this too, Terry, and I'm not throwing away our faith. I'm saying that sometimes you're with people who don't want to speak anything out of the Bible, don't want to mention an angelic name. They don't want Jesus Christ mentioned. They don't want you to pray. Mm-hmm. So then I say, then take the object, tear it up, burn it, or destroy it.
Right.
I mean, the prayer was the strongest one. I've had others, but someone has said, well, I can't do that, and I don't know how to pray that, and I won't. Well, then it's either going to stay, but I'm going to tell you some other things to do. Then do this.
Yes.
If you don't wish to do this, then at least get rid of the object, even if it's a bed.
Mm-hmm.
And,
and you had mentioned something earlier about that as well, about if you get help and there is deliverance and something is cleansed and you're freed from it, that's very powerful, but that doesn't mean it's never going to come back again to attack, because an attack is exactly that. It's an attack, and we can be attacked frequently. Sometimes I'll be attacked very frequently and then not for a year like that. A whole year can go by and then all of a sudden it's an attack again. And so that's just another, I just wanted to mention that because you had mentioned that, that is pretty much the spiritual walk. We go through attacks from the enemy all the time. Sometimes they're spiritual, sometimes they're mental or physical. So.
You're right, Terry. Attachments can be, if the person who's watching never had that, or they don't understand it, or they do have it, it's like you don't get rid of the object or the thing or the piece or the place,
right,
or even the person you're not supposed to be around. It's like a thread.
Right.
They can attach themselves to you, or they can attach themselves to the object like a thread, like a rope. And you throw the end of the rope out with the stone on it, and you think it's lost, but it's not. It's still attached.
Right.
And that's the thing. So that one is fun to share about Scotland.
Yes, I know. I want to hear all about it. I love that place. I have a little Scottish in me too.
Ooh, yay! All right, just for entrance, my clan is Donakeed.
Ooh.
Renfroe of the Renfrew Shire. And Renfroe is on my dad's side, and my mother's side was Ware. On the Ware River and Duncan. Duncan, so all of those sides. So I wound up finding that I'm a Scot on both sides of us, Emily. Real good. So this was in Scotland. We had a driver. We were invited, as many of the other clans were. Was it 2017?
Yes.
16? Okay.
Yeah, 17.
Somehow the Historical Society or the Brits or the families over there, I don't know where it came from, but they allowed everyone around the world who was a member of a clan in Scotland to march with the military tattoos.
Oh, wow.
Great. So we went, and I had been having specific dreams since 1997 and visions since 1997. So I had kept them up, journaled where they were and what I was seeing. And over the years, from 97 up to 2016, I found the pictures of the places, or I looked them up.
Oh, how neat.
It felt like I had been there, or it felt like I was supposed to go there, or I identified it. And so as a result, when we went to plan our trip, we decided we were going to not only join the clans and march, but we were going to stay for nearly a month and travel Scotland. And I planned the entire trip around these places that I had had the visions and dreams from.
Cool.
And something happened every single one.
Mm-hmm.
But this did not happen because I had had a vision of it. Yeah. One day, we went to the place where I was supposed to, and that was great. And so the driver, Michael, stopped. He says, well, I'm going to take you over to a real good castle, and it's a real pretty one. So you're going to stop, and we're going to go around the back, and we're going to look all over the land. So get out. So I got out, and we're walking up, And all of a sudden, I looked at this beautiful castle, and I see a young girl jumping out of a window.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to hold on, and I see her floating down and coming out. I said, oh, okay, let's just note that. Now let's go in, take the tour, and find out what's the dookie that I just saw.
Yeah.
So it was meaningful. So I'm reading your story, my time period, and the girl was verified even before we went on the tour, because I walked up to a gentleman and I said, what's in this castle where a girl jumped? This is what she looked like. This is the area where she jumped out of. And she's on the second floor. And so he looked at me and he thought he was going to fall over. And he said, yes, how did you know that? And I said, because I saw her outside. And he says, really? He didn't want to believe it, but then he did. And he said, well, other people have kind of had similar. He said, but you're being very specific. And I said, well, she was specific. She wanted me to see her.
Yes. Yeah.
So he said, well, go on upstairs and you'll just take the tour. And when you get to the room, you'll have that. And he said, thank you for sharing with me. And I appreciate that you verified for me. And I said, well, thank you for answering my question. We don't have to be. So I went up, and then they told the story. She had been picked up by a lord back in the 17. I wish I had found it before we came on tonight. I just quickly wrote down some thoughts. I'd have to go back and get all the details. 17th or 18th century, and he kidnapped her, took her to that room, and wanted to marry her, and but yet was very abusive. So he wound up locking her in there, and she jumped. So I did not see her fall to the death. She was letting me see her get out of the window. She was actually trying to climb down.
Oh, and it didn't go well.
I don't think she was trying to kill herself, and I think that's what this girl was trying to show me. Sometimes they're like watching them.
They want to clarify something. Yeah.
Yeah, and show you the movie of what they did and where they were. And so it wasn't anything terrible. There was no demonic that came out. Nothing happened. Nobody screamed.
Right.
And so I just prayed for her to be at rest, which is something that I believe in. I know theologically that's not sound in a lot of the liturgical theological backgrounds. I realize that. That's not in the theology.
But the good news, though, Rebecca, is God is omnipotent. So a prayer that we pray in 2020 could go all the way back to 16 or the 17 or 18th, and be applied to that, I feel.
Terry, thank you. No one's ever said that before. How beautiful. Boy, that was an inspiring thought from you. Wow.
So we never know the power of our prayer is really the bottom line and takeaway there. Prayer is more powerful than anything else. And maybe you were allowed to see that so that your prayer would gap that time frame. We never know, do we?
You're making me cry.
Aww.
No one said that to me before.
Aw.
Because you feel medium. No, I won't say medium, because that's not. Seer and sensitive are more accepted in the Christian church. So I use those two terms because you can't use the others. Because then you separate yourself and people don't listen. So I try to find words where people will listen. And I think, Terry, that that's very meaningful. I appreciate what you said. I'm really going to think on that one.
One thing I do want to say is when you consider Mary, the mother of Jesus, she saw angels. She had dreams. Joseph saw angels. He had dreams. Now, that is who I am. I'm a person who has seen angels and had dreams and had moments where I feel the Lord talking to me. I'm neither a seer nor a psychic nor a medium or any of those things. But when we're like you, when we're connected in the spiritual realm to God, these things can happen. And I think a lot of Christians misunderstand the depth of the relationship that we develop with Him because we're depending on Him so completely to clarify what just happened there. Why did that happen? Why did I have to see that? Why did you have to see the girl falling. Why didn't somebody else see that? You know, and
She
so
never intended to kill herself. You're right.
right, exactly.
So Terry, you made me think about something recently because we have a beautiful pastor, female and male pastors, Father R and Reverend K. And they know that I'm capable of seeing angels in the church and things. And this little boy drew an angel one day and walked up to the pastor afterwards. And he led the child over to me and said, she will understand, sit with her and talk with her. So that was a beautiful moment in which I could sit with the child, talk to the child, assure them that they're okay, that I see them also, and to keep drawing and just get acquainted with God's life and God's realm. And know how wonderful that is, that you can see through the veil.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's very good. Dan, I never asked you, honey. Did you ever experience anything at that castle when we were walking through that day? You never.
Other than tremendous awe at their building ability.
Oh my goodness, isn't that the truth? And they're still holding up.
Yeah, amazingly.
Amazingly. Yes.
Beautiful place.
Scotland
is
yes.
marvelous.
Oh my goodness, yes. Unbelievable views. I mean, they're breathtaking. And you guys had such an amazing time and so much time there. You know, you really got to, get involved and, meet the folks, the locals.
It was our honeymoon.
Yeah. Oh, well, and that too.
Oh, here's a fun one, Terry. You and Kevin will love this, and I hope this will be fun for someone who's listening. Just a quick story before we get to our meaningful one in which you and Kevin were involved. That is very special. This is a quickie. One of the places that we stopped due to this wonderful driver, Michael, was on the very far north end of Scotland, and he took us to a place where you could watch the dolphins. And there were a large group of people that day. It was cold, windy, and there were children, dogs of all kinds, and people, elderly, and lots of photographers and reporters. So Michael said, oh, there aren't too many dolphins today. They're not able to photograph. And so I said, oh, well, let's go call them. And I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think a thing of it. So I just walked over to the edge of the water in between a child and a photographer. And I reached down. I didn't say anything out loud. I just sent out the signal to the dolphins that the photographers needed to see them. See them. And then I spoke just very quietly, and then I thought it out and sent it out from the pineal center chakra area here through the water, because they have sonar. So therefore, you need to know how to send it. Put out the hand to the direction where they were, and ask them to come. Well, within a matter of minutes, boom, da boom, they were jumping, having. And so
how wonderful!
The photographers going, the children, the dogs were excited. So
Michael comes over to me and he says, does this happen a lot? I said, it kind of does.
So Michael said, I'm sorry. He was shaking. Bless his heart.
He was scared.
I'm going to go back to the truck, and I'll wait for you.
Oh my goodness!
I said, well, Michael, you asked me.
Yeah.
They're not here, so I had to go call them. See, you see, on our side, we're not thinking anything of it, Terry.
Yeah.
Just do it. It's kind of like, say, somebody needs a healing, whether they stand up and walk, at least go over there if they need it and pray for it.
Yeah. I never pass up an opportunity to pray. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to know God and then make him known through prayer and testimonies. So, but people don't always get that, I don't know. Oh, well. Well, so moving forward, I know you've got a story about the young girl and a demonic spirit.
Involved.
Of course, yeah.
I was working with a woman in spiritual direction. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And this woman asked that we come over. And I said, well, I'm going to bring a dear friend who is licensed in this, who is an investigator, and she is a strong Christian. And we're going to come together as a team, and we're going to bring a videographer, because there may be things on the land we need to note. And so we're going to come over, and while she's praying for your daughter, I'm going to be walking the house. So, Terry, you can jump in at any point. And
but you do it.
Okay. Well, Terry was very, very wise. I want the listeners for your show to know that
Well,
Terry
thank you.
said to me very carefully and in wisdom, she said, Rebecca, if you encounter a spirit that starts to talk to you, take it outside of the house immediately and deal with it. Don't have any conversation while I'm in there working, because the child is dealing with a demonic spirit in its room and it needs to leave. So I followed her example and her wisdom. And the moment we walked in, Terry took off with the mother and the child back to the room. And I stood there, and immediately this tall, handsome spirit walks up, tells me he needs to find his wife, Nancy, and starts talking to me. I said, we're not staying in here. You've got to come outside with me, and I got to find out where you are, and the Lord Jesus Christ is with me, so you follow me or don't, but you got to get out. So he followed me out, and I said, I don't know anything. Then he started talking to me about the ground, and he wanted to find his wife and where she was buried. I said, I don't know anything about this. I said, you're going to have to, right now, you're going to have to go, because I need to go in and pray for the house while Terry is working with the child. So we worked as a team that day, and Kevin is filming around. If Kevin wants to say anything about that day, that's good. So, but at one point, we all, after Terry prays with the mother, the child sits down somewhere, and the mother and Terry and Kevin and I are all walking across this property where there's pasture, a horse in the back, there's a field with a fence around it, and we all walk over, and all of a sudden we cross a line, like a line, and all of us feel it. All of us experienced it. It was like going to another time period. Over the field, I could see groups of people standing up straight in different outfits, some in Civil War, some in farm outfits, some up to date, some not up to date. I couldn't make it all out. There were kids, middle-aged, elderly, couples together, and they were all standing in this pasture.
Yes, I remember that, and all the children came over to me and were hanging on my pants. Do you remember that?
Yes, Terry.
Yeah.
So when we got through, this
Was
is
it
great.
a graveyard?
No.
Well, I'll tell you.
Okay.
Take a minute.
Yeah.
It all came together. Terry and Kevin stayed where they were on the side. I watched them, and as they all shot up into the air as you told them to go, and the children came over and heard you, and you were praying. Kevin was praying. The horse was back there and neighing away. The mother was there, just standing there watching it, I think. So when we started to leave, the boyfriend of the mother came home. He came out to find out who we were, and
he was a police officer.
I didn't remember that, Terry.
Yes, he was a police officer.
Okay, thank you. Well, he started talking, and behind him was a gentleman who was draped in a black hood, and it went back over down the shoulders, and he was talking to him, and I could hear him. And the policeman's talking to me, wanted to know my name, wanted to know how things went, what it was, checking me out. I was okay. You were okay. What was Kevin doing with the film? How was the child? Wanted to check it out, make sure we were okay.
Right.
And I said, would you be okay if I talk to you about a spiritual matter here? And he said, okay. I said, will you accept it if there's someone behind you? He got a little nervous, but he said, okay. And I said, all right, you've given me permission. And I described the gentleman, what he had on, and the hood's important here. So I said, now he's telling you to get in touch with your brother and call him up, and don't delay on this. And then he said a couple of other things.
Yeah.
Personal.
Yeah.
So he just shook his head. I don't know where my brother is. I don't know where he is. I can't reach him. And he got upset, and he ran into the house.
Yes, I remember that.
I let it go, Terry. I let it go. God, this is up to you. This is your healing, your way. You allow me to see these things about people who have passed. It is not demonic. I said, so therefore, it's in your hands.
Right.
So we're getting in the car, and Kevin's putting the equipment away, and he runs out, and he's crying.
Yes.
That it was my buddy. I lost him in the war. He always wore a hood.
Oh.
Tell me again what he said. Tell me again what he told me to do.
Yeah.
He said, my brother's in England. I will find him.
Yes.
I will call.
Yes. Yes,
So,
and that became such a powerful moment. We were able to talk about Jesus to them. We were able to really help that family. That was a beautiful thing. And the daughter was definitely fighting something that had been attacking her for about 4 years. And yeah, we worked with those people for about a year. And it was somewhere near the Mount Dora area in Florida. And we always enjoyed going to meet with them. And as she grew up, everything just is great now. You know, I've somewhat stayed in touch with them, but not that much.
the best
Was
part
there
the
any
last
follow-up?
confirmation.
Yeah, was there
Yes,
any
the last
follow-up?
confirmation, I asked her before we left, and I think you did too, check on the ground, go to the records, and
Yes.
find out what happened on the property or near it.
Mhm.
And she did, and she called me weeks later and said, I went down, they showed me the records, there was a major battle.
Yes, and we
That's
saw
it.
that.
People-
Yes.
People who died were the ones in the pasture, locked in their pasture.
Yep.
But
Yep.
look what God did.
Yes, it was just the most beautiful thing, and
It was
people were
beautiful.
set free, and they had some information, something to go by. It was just a really wonderful time, and I'm very thankful for that because, you know, every time we go, even though we're there to help them, we learn so much, and we deepen our relationship with the Lord, and we make new friends. And I just think that's an amazing story. It was really beautiful, but.
We did it together.
Yes, that was so much fun. And now let's move on to that Apalachicola.
Dan and I were finishing our
Story.
eighth year anniversary, and I'll let you tell the last part with your ex, because he's a part of this story too. Dan's in this one. This one is about our first stop after we finished our 8th anniversary trip, northern Georgia, because it's so much like Scotland, and we love where we stay at the B&B. We were invited to come down and stay near the base of our friend who's a lieutenant colonel. So we stayed in her place, and then we decided to go back. I said, let's don't do the highways. Let's go back old 98. Oh, the old road to Florida.
Sounds
along the
like
water.
Kevin.
So we did. We stopped at Apalachicola, and I said, let's have coffee at the end. And
Yeah.
so we went in, and when I walked into the bathroom, wouldn't you know it?
Oh boy.
Oh, a spook comes up and comes out of the cement side of the wall. This woman, she's dressed in her 50s. She's upset. She had a pretty makeup on and nicely coiffed hair. And
Wow.
okay, so she wanted to get something done, but she wanted to get out of there. And so I just turned around. I wanted to go in and have a cup of coffee. I didn't want to get met by spirit. I just wasn't in the mood. So shame on me.
I know the feeling.
I walked out, and so I said, let's walk up these beautiful set of stairs. Let's go up there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
we walk
boy.
up the stairs, and I'm standing at the top.
Magnificent old building.
Dan
Oh.
is ahead of me.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this force field,
Uh-huh.
about, about within 4 feet wide, on the opposite side of the force field was a young bellboy from another time period.
Ah.
And he was beside it, and he was talking. And I look back at this trying to figure it out. I don't believe he was the one that pushed that force field. I believe the force field was an energy field. I have not had this one before, but it tried to push me down the stairs.
Oh yes, I
I
remember you
almost
telling
went
me that.
on my head, and I would have had a broken neck. I would be gone.
Yeah.
Luckily, I was able to catch myself after being pushed, and of course, I came down immediately and decided I wasn't going to be a part of this. We
Yeah.
took our coffee and we sat outside. So before we left, I said, let's go back in. Let's make sure we've talked to the ladies at the desk. So we did.
Find out
Yeah.
what they have to say.
Oh, they started in on the stories, and
Yeah.
it is recorded. The Gibson Inn is recorded. The Apalachicola Inn is recorded, and you can find it online there. And they describe about the death of someone there. But there are other things going on in that place. I won't go into their stories.
Had somebody been pushed down those stairs?
No,
Oh.
they didn't want to didn't want to hear that particular story. They were used
Ooh.
to sound, to people behind them, to laughter, to blowing on their necks, to the presence of things. To the younger girl was disturbed by a particular area in the inn. So I don't want to talk about names or who we met.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
want them in jeopardy.
Yeah.
But people who are traveling who like this sort of thing, I told Dan on the way out, I'm not going to stay there. I'll spend too much time exercising the place without help.
Yeah.
So Dan then said, it's your turn.
Now get more into the thing so I can see you, Dan. Move over closer to your honey.
Hey,
There you
sweetheart.
go.
About your wife.
Oh,
Upset she was.
yeah. Of course, it's awkward to talk about an ex-wife or late wife in this case with your present one. But we had, it's a lucky man has a soulmate twice in his life.
That's right.
But we had our 25th anniversary, and we went there and stayed in the Gibson Inn in Pensacola. And I can remember her saying that she was uneasy about the building. And the room we had was up on the second floor. It was a beautiful room. Everything was perfect. There was nothing out of the ordinary. She just felt very uneasy about it.
Was there more than 2 floors to this inn? Was it a 3-floor
I believe
place?
I believe you're correct. It's a 3-story.
3. Okay. So you were on the 2nd floor.
Right. And the restaurant and the bar and
That's the first floor. Second
pool
floor.
room and so forth are on the first floor. Second floor there was rooms, and then on the third floor there was
Okay.
whatever.
Well, people can check it.
Yeah,
If
sure.
there is a third floor, there should have been, right? However that works out.
Yeah.
But they had a number of very, very nice rooms. But she felt so uneasy about it, and we stayed there for 3-4 days, and looked around at all of the interesting things around that area. And I remember her remarking that she did not. She had an uneasy feeling about the room.
So I thought that was interesting that he would share that with me
Right.
after we experienced that. And
because I had totally forgot about that part.
Yeah, because whatever was there is still there and has been there for a while, it appears. They haven't had it delivered or sent out. I'll have to go and cleanse the place.
There you go. Yeah.
but Apalachicola was in the process of restoration. They were raising funds. There were bikers there and people walking, and it's a beautiful
Oh,
place.
it sounds
So I
like
don't want
fun.
to tell people not to go. I do not want to talk against the inn. That's not my purpose. We were sharing a story.
Right.
But confirmation is extremely important.
Well, the portion about the story that concerns me is that this entity came against you in a forceful manner, tried to push you down the stairs. Now, there's 2 things to say about that. One is that is not a positive experience, and 2, it meant harm to you, which could have truly crippled you or sent you to a hospital with who knows what. I mean, it could have even killed you, like you said. So that concerns me. And the way I look at things from a Christian perspective is, no, I'm not okay with a spirit that would harm someone. That has a certain power and force to it that we should not allow. And we need to cast things like that out in the name of Jesus, because somebody could get hurt. And obviously, it's a negative spirit, very negative. So these things, are real. They're here with us, on this planet. We have so many different things,
Jerry,
Yes.
just a thought. Maybe it's whatever this
Get into the line.
situation was. Maybe that was their way of making themselves known, to just give you a gentle shove.
Well, that wasn't gentle.
But I was standing right next to her.
When I was kind of picking up, that wasn't a gentle nudge.
Well,
no.
it didn't nudge me, so I can't testify.
Right. And, that's the other thing. It didn't attack you. It was purposefully attacking Rebecca, because they know that we're gifted from the Lord, and they know, it seems, when you walk into a room, like when I went to the Octagon Hall, I had two things come right at me, almost knocked me over. They came at me so fast because they knew I'm not there to talk to them or entertain them. I'm there to remove them. It's the psychics and the mediums that play the games with them. That's not why I'm there. I'm there to do them out, get them away. And so, sometimes I think they pick that up with a spiritual person who is very close to the Lord, and that may be the very reason that they pushed you,
Very good, Terry.
And just in the future, when you go into some place, ask the Lord to put a hedge of protection around you so that nothing touches you or pushes you or causes you harm in any way.
Excellent.
But I think,
need to remember that.
Yes, and I always pray over places like that. If we've been in quite a few places where we've had some very odd experiences, and I'll pray over that area that nothing would happen to anybody in these rooms. That I felt something. You also wanted to mention, I guess we overlooked it when we were talking about Scotland and all of this, but we have just a little bit of time, and I want to
Were there any
finish
questions?
with this.
Do people ever ask questions?
Well, if they do, let's just say right now they'll put them in our little chat room, and you can go in and watch this after this is a live recording, so you can go in and watch, and if there's any questions, they'll be in that chat, and then that way you can answer them. But how would you like people to reach out to you, Rebecca, if they have questions and they'd like to ask you about your book, The Quantum Windows and Dimensions? I love that name. It's just amazing.
I think the best thing for me right now, because I'm still finishing concerts, and we have to work on the book, and we've got Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
I'd love to come back and share the book with you.
Yes.
After, and then we can have an open discussion, and we can move forward. And because I'd like you to be the first person I have the interview with when the book comes out.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. And then April will be here. And I'm so sorry April had to miss this because she had a cold.
Hey, April.
But we're missing her like crazy tonight. But, it is what it is. Well, tell us a little bit about the Loch Ness Monster. And
behind you, when I saw that.
It's over there. There we go. Yeah.
I did not see it in Scotland. There is.
Oh, yeah. Where was it?
We didn't. Okay, well, it was
Lake Champlain.
I do put this in the book.
Yeah.
1982, 5:30 in the afternoon. I was asked to join a gentleman who asked me to go meet his family, and I don't know if they owned the whole island at one point. But
What year was this? What year?
1982.
82.
1982.
Okay.
And so we traveled and we stayed with his family, and there was a new baby, and it was in a cabin overlooking Lake Champlain.
Oh.
And it was 5:30 in the afternoon on this particular day when we visited this island. And we were standing on the shale, and I looked out, and about 500 feet away, right out of the water,
Yeah.
as clear as could be, you could see what people consider the Loch Ness, huge long neck and the same head, and which is familiar. And then I said, "What is that?" And then it slowly started descending back into the water. And of course, they were angry as could be because they lived there, and the woman who sat out every day waiting to see what they call the champ.
Beginner's luck.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it has telepathic properties, and it was calm. And so my friend, who had taken me there to meet his family, he said, "We're going to go to a darling little store, and I want you to go over to the corner." And when we got there, and I did, and he said, "Now read all of the papers there." because you drew it for us last night at dinner. See if it matches all these papers. Well, there was a stack of paper on this desk in this store. And they were the fishermen and the people who lived there. They had all drawn it, whether they were in or out of the boat. It would not appear or come near the boat or ride with you if you had a motor. It was only with peace. And it was there, and it's like the plesiosaur, plesiosaurus or plesiosaur.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
Definitely
So,
Dinosaurus.
It probably traveled. It's been left alive through the centuries or whatever. However it is, there, just like the dragons used to be real. Well, this is just as real. I wish and I wanted very much to see the Loch Ness. I could feel its presence, but I did not see it.
Right.
I can't claim that one at all. Yeah. But it was a beautiful sight, and they are telepathic, and I'm sure they could harm if they had to, but I did not sense anything that was detrimental.
Yeah. Wow. That's just crazy stuff. I believe that we do have monsters in the water. The Lord talks about Leviathan, and he calls it a monster, a sea monster. And I'm like, okay, the word monster is literally in the Bible. Oh boy, that was a very interesting read. And I thought, well, those things do exist, and God is aware of them, and I don't know if that is actually Leviathan. Who knows? Who knows if what we see as Loch Ness or as what the one at Lake Champlain or whatever that is, what is it? But it's kind of creepy, and we can see how big those big whales are. Those really big ones. I forget the white whales, or is it the
right whale?
Yeah, and the blue whale, and there's so many different whales that are absolutely amazingly large, but they're not called in the Bible monsters. They're just called big fish. And that's and so look at the two of you.
Terry, I know we're about to go. There's something I feel that I should say very quickly. Yes. I watched a movie recently with James Seymour from 2001. Called Yesterday's Children.
Oh, yeah.
And the beauty of the film deals with this. I'm not into reincarnation. I do not focus on that.
Yeah.
The life of Christ, as far as I know, did not. However, this movie deals with this subject matter in such a beautiful and delicate and healing manner. I really encourage anyone who feels like they've lived in another time period, I understand, who feel like they don't have something healed or drawn. The movie is worth watching. She sits with a Catholic priest, and he says, I do not believe in reincarnation, but it could be one soul from another time period speaking to your soul. He answered her that way. She brought together family members that she believed that, and it shows how God worked through her, through the visions and the dreams she was having of believing she had lived in another life. And she went to Ireland, and she brings it all together, don't you know? And it's a beautiful story. She's not Irish, and I love dialect. It's precious. So
ask her to speak in Klingon.
No.
Well, I'm a little bit Scots-Irish, so
right.
I love it.
Girl.
I love that. But
and for some reason, I felt that was important to share before we end tonight.
Yeah, and what's weird is I was just talking to my beautiful granddaughter. Yesterday, we had an hour Bible study on the phone. We've started that now, and we were talking about the fact that I don't really believe in reincarnation. And yet, there are so many stories of these young children who have memories that they couldn't possibly have. I'm one of them, and I don't even believe what I experienced, which is so bizarre because it's kind of a conundrum. It's like, part of me is saying yes, the other part is saying no, and it doesn't align right. So I'm still seeking the Lord for answers. So I'm still seeking the Lord for answers. And you know, I think it's such an interesting concept of how these little kids can give absolute detail about who murdered them in a past life. But like the Catholic priest, I do believe that it could be a spirit that saw that in that time frame, be it from the 12th century, the 14th, 15th, 17th, 1800s, you know, who knows, and is reporting it through that child. And that's a possibility, but I'm not saying that's what it is, because I don't have a clue what it really is. And it's not really clear. So I don't know if any listeners are out there and they've got a real clear understanding. Reach out to us.
I'm not putting anyone down who believes in that.
No.
Has never been that direction, because I stay in the past if I do that, and then I don't focus on the now.
Yes.
Some people need to review their past. They need it in order to heal and move forward. So I understand that.
Yes.
Totally.
I wish I had more understanding of it, but I can't speak about what I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Our theology teaches against, therefore, we work through this together. We don't throw anything out. I don't throw anything out.
Right.
I want to talk about it and understand, and then say, I can't focus there because this is what it does to me. But yet I will go there and I'll talk about it. And if I have a misunderstanding or I need to clear something up, let's do it that way. I thought the movie was beautiful. And I know it's an in-depth, and I know I've spoken at length at the Edgar Cayce Foundation, where the focus Cayce was on reincarnation at the end of his life. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't the whole of his life.
Exactly.
So, someone asked me once when I was speaking, do you believe in reincarnation? And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you I don't. What I will tell you is I don't focus on that.
Yeah.
And there are reasons why. And I said, but when I pass, if my Heavenly Father, who I stand before, says you've got to go back, I will beg to come back as a horse, a bird, or a mermaid.
I will beg not to come back. I've already been with the Lord out of my body, and I did not want to come back. I was very adamant. I even fought very, very hard.
Right.
But, I'm going to definitely invite you back, because we will have a near-death talk. And I'm also a near-death experiencer, and I would love to chat with you at another time. So sometime next year, I'll look and see what we've got in the books and try to book you in. So thank you so much for being here tonight. This has really been refreshing. It's been a lot of fun. And just chatting back and forth, and your lovely husband, Dan the man, I'm so happy that he could be a part of this with us. Thank you both so much for coming. And for those of you who are watching tonight, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at our email at hauntedparis@usa.com. And I want to thank Enigmatic Anomalies for sponsoring us tonight. And we have a YouTube channel. If you'd like to watch us on YouTube, it's ea-tv.com, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/@Paris Paranormal. So we hope to see you again next week, and I'm so looking forward to being with April again, and I hope that she's doing well. We send our love out to her. So you all have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.